Hey, it's Wednesday, the 24th of February, and Thursday, the 25th of February, and we're going to get into stories about gods making poor choices and all kinds of wonderful and fun things from there. So we talked about We the People already, applications on my Canvas page on the announcements, donate things for the whole stuffed animal thing, for the cameras on. Again, when you get kicked out, it's because some of you guys are just putting the top of your foreheads on there and then disappearing. So if you continually do that, eventually you get disappeared and you bye-bye and stuff like that. Let's see, on here, we should be all the way through almost 40, like in the 37, 38 area, depending on how well you've been paying attention to things. If you lose your blue sheet, sucks to be you. You're going to have to start all over again because you are turning it in for a grade, and you do have to turn it in. Once again, well, for those of you who are virtual kids, I mean, you cannot turn it in, and I can't torture you. Those of you who are red and blue kids, you have to turn yours in because I get to torture you every day if it's not turned in. Now, I mean, those of you who are virtual, you're still turning it in. It's just that I can't torture you when you're lazy. Red and blue children, I can torture you when you're lazy. I mean, not torture. I would never torture a child. Creatively educate a child is what I will choose to do to make you a better person. Thank you for my applause. All right. So you should have this thing filled out for those of you who've been paying attention. We are halfway through it, roughly. We got to the number 5 spot, I think. And we're going to get all the way through the number 11 spot today with more of our fun stories. And much as you guys might have paid attention on Monday with my creepy first period, it's okay. Creepy first period is back. And they came with even more creative things again, and it made it all kinds of fun. So we'll see if they can help entertain you guys. Our first god to get, I said creepy children, and you raised your hand. What's up? Yeah, that's what we're going to get to here in a moment. They said that's actually the least creepy of the things that they said, but we'll get there in a moment. So as we go through our listing of gods, and yes, you are going to get a chance to do the dancing with me here in just a moment. For those of you like, oh, Mr. Brovi, I wish I could dance. Don't worry, we are going to dance here in a moment, and it's going to be great. So our first god to get a throne is nicely done. So we have Zeus as our first one. What do we say for Zeus? Is correct. And yeah, this is when my first period got on a really weird daddy phrase, and they started adding daddy to everything. And so Zeus became King Daddy. And I was like, well, that was strange. Like, oh, hold my backpack. They went and got even weirder from there. So for him, what hand sign do we do with it? There's where nicely done with the point and the holding the lightning bolt for the smiting again. Be careful if you're holding your pencil in your hand that you don't accidentally smite someone's forehead and turn them into a unicorn, but that's going to be a whole different issue. Enjoying that. Yes, Antoinette, that's fine with me. I will accept you when you return. And then after Zeus, our next one's going to be is correct. Now, we know what she's supposed to be in control of, which would be that's not what she's supposed to be in control of. Marriage and baby birth. There you go. She's supposed to be in control of marriage and childbirth. But because we're sexist, that's not what we know her for. What is it we know her for? Queen of all gods. And here's where first period started being really strange. And they introduced me to the phrase Queen Daddy. And I said, I don't think that's how it works. Like, it does, Queen Daddy. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, Queen Mommy would be like, nope, Queen Daddy. And I'm like, no, Queen Daddy it is. Now, for me, I'm sticking with Queen of all gods. But if you feel like going the creepy route, that's I said creepy and you raised your hand. What's up, Zach?
So if they call the gods daddy, Queen Daddy of all daddies?
Listen, Boo, you figure out. They don't call the gods daddies. They're just whatever. I am not trying to apply logic to this. I just went ahead and rode the rodeo. Our hand sign to go along with Hera, Queen Daddy, is going nicely done. Again, wearing a crown, not mooses. And again, I'm a sparkle crown kind of person. For those of, I did have a kid who did this. I'm like, I think that's hair buns. I'm like, I'm not sure what you're doing, but to each kid their own. So yeah, I'm going to go for the holding the hands like a crown. That's again, that would actually work for me because it does help you understand what's happening. Antoinette, we can see you. You're adorable. Welcome back. All right, and so we have there. Oh, after Hera, our next one to get a throne is it's nicely done, Poseidon. And then what is he the control of? Oh, look at you guys. We're paying attention to first period. Yeah. So again, I call him God of the oceans. First period went with close. They actually went more water daddy. I liked ocean daddy, but they were like water daddy. And I'm like, why? Why is this a thing? But that's the thing they went with. And so.
Isn't first period an advanced class?
No. I mean, sorry, if you're in first period, there's no. There's just really special children. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some special kids in there, but no. And so we have, our hand sign for water daddy is, and here again is where some of you should never go swimming in the summertime. I'm swimming. It looks like you're patting little children on the head, but it's okay. We're bonding with, I'm more, and again, those of you who are dog paddling, it is not that girl insulted my hair, so we're not doing a slappy thing, but to each their own. And then, our next one to get a throne is Hades. Nicely done. Hades. Why is Hades not on the list? There you go. He has a throne, but he's the one that rejects and gives up his throne. So that's why he's not on the list. Our next one to get a throne and keep a throne is, that's where Demeter comes in. And what do we say for Demeter? There you go, God of grains and harvest. And yes, first period went with grain daddy. And again, after a while, I just didn't even challenge it. I was like, you know what? If this is a thing that helps you remember them, I just can't wait till you're in high school at some point and you're taking a class. You're like, Demeter, grain daddy. They're like, what's wrong with you? You're like, sister of water daddy. They're like, what happened to you when you were a child? You're like, Mr. Brough, yeah. Like, oh, that explains a lot. And look how this is a good connection. Our hand sign for grain daddy. Nicely done. And that's again our lawn. Many of you should never touch a lawnmower. Watching you attempt to mow the lawn right now. Looks like either you stuck your finger into a light socket or you become little Frankensteins. Half of you are like, Demeter, grain daddy. And I was like, So again, not making fun of you. I'm just openly mocking your existence. After Demeter, our next one to get a throne is not Hephaestus, Hestia. And for those of you who were not in the room on Monday, I kept talking about her poster. It's over here above Ethan. This is her poster where she looks like a ghost. It's because, again, she was the god of fireplaces. So there's our fireplace, there's our chimney, and she's being formed of the smoke that comes out of it. And yes, Jermaine, you can, bro. And so that would be Hestia. So keep trying not to make it creepy, but okay. And so on here, remember that Hestia has a throne. I will keep referring back to the fact that Hestia has a throne. So do not forget. You're going to forget it, but I'm going to keep reminding you, just like I keep charging a kid points who keeps yelling Tinkletown. We each have our own issues from there. So at this point, he has run out of siblings. Hang on to there. So who are we going to fill in with the rest of these things? And that's where, how many children do he and Hera have? 4. Nicely done. 4 children. Of those 4, how many of them get thrones? 2. And boys or girls?
Boys.
That answers my next question, which is going to be why. And it's sexism. Not a thing we're supposed to cheer. But the 2 boys' names are going to be nicely done. This is where Hephaestus and Ares come in. For Hephaestus, what do we already know he is in control of? God of metalsmiths. Or blacksmiths, same thing. Unless you're in first period, then it becomes
Daddy Smiths.
It makes me a little proud that you guys can't naturally channel your first period. You know, that you can't just come with it right away. Yeah, no, they all went for Metal Daddy, which is kind of like some kind of like rock god. You're like, I'm going out to the concert this weekend. Who's playing? Metal Daddy. And so they went for Metal Daddy. We're not there yet. Have patience, child. Apparently we have patience, daddy. And so now we have Hephaestus, and we have our speedy story on that one. So we have Zeus. Why does Zeus launch? Why does Zeus eat him?
Because he's arguing all the other
He is ugly, but that's not why Zeus launches him.
He argued
with him. He argued with his mom's side.
There you go. Arguing with the parents because he took his mom's side. That's when Zeus, you don't just throw a child away because they're ugly. Oh, wait. Never mind. You do, but that's not sure I'll tell you in a second. And so, how'd you find your way back home? So now, so he gets thrown out the window, goes flying out over the ocean. He's afraid he's going to drown. So what does he land on? He gets lucky. He sees an island, steers himself towards it. Although it doesn't turn out to be lucky because hitting water, you might not be bad. But hitting the island, what happens? Crushy, as the scientists say, crushy leggies. And that's when it becomes the accordion, goes all smashy, smashy. And then he has Zach syndrome. And so now he's wandering around on the island, and there's the giant mountain that's going to be on there. What does he hear at the top of the mountain? Who does he think is doing the kabooming? And so he goes up there to confront his father, goes up to the top, gets up to the top, turns out it's not coming from outside the mountain, it's coming from inside the mountain. He finds the cave to go inside. What does he find inside? And that's where he finds the Cyclops. What did the Cyclops do with them? There you go. Teach him how to do the metalworking and stuff like that. And so now that he has learned how to do it, what is our hand sign for him? Again, this is where some of you may want to invest in a helmet before you ever do any kind of house repair. Mr. Broviak, look at me, I'm a hammer. That's called giving yourself brain damage. Back to that explains a lot. So on isn't really helping that one. So the other version of the story that I didn't get a chance to tell you guys. So it goes in, it's pretty much the same story except the very beginning of it. And it was instead of him getting into a fight with Zeus about defending his mom, it was when he was born, Hera saw him and Ares next to each other. And Ares, we're going to find out, is a really attractive god. He's going to actually be the most attractive god until Apollo was born years later. And she sees this really hot child and this really not attractive child. And she is so upset with the difference between them. She figures the only way to make this okay is to literally throw the other child out. So she takes the ugly child and she was like, you know what you do with ugly babies? Talk to Max's mom. And then throws the child. Sorry. And then chucks. You set yourself up for that one. And then chucks the baby out. And that's how he got injured and has to grow up down there. And so I don't like that version because it's depressing. Now, given, I mean, Zeus chucking a baby also depressing, but not as depressing as that version. So I usually focus more on the Zeus version than the Hera version. Agreed. So now we have Ares as our other brother. Now we've already met Ares. What do we know about him?
God of war, or war daddy.
Good job, first period. God of war and war daddy. I've noticed that one too. So things to know about with Ares, aside from being God of war, he was super attractive. It's one of those things that we'll get into the story coming up is the fact that overall he was one of the hotter gods that was out there. He was also a wussy. Even though he was a god of war, he was a bully and a wussy. There are stories of him coming down to Earth, taking a human form, picking fights with humans, getting beat up, going back to Mount Olympus and crying. The other gods did not like Ares because he was just that all-around bully, jerk, not a nice person. Really attractive to look at, horrible once you talk to him. So what a hand sign I want to teach you is to help you remember the fact that even though he's a god of war, he was not a big tough guy. He was not like Atlas. He was a wussy god of war. So to properly teach you this, I have to take you back in time to my childhood for a second. So come with me on a small journey. When I was a child, I was not this big outgoing person that you see in front of you today. When I was a child, I was the shy, quiet kid that sat in the back of the room and did not talk to people. Like talking very much like Hades. Talking to me would have made me cry. And because of that, you might not know this, but shy kids get picked on by bullies quite a bit. And so I got picked on when I was younger. So I was taught how to defend myself. But not being a big, strong, tough fighter person, I was taught a special way of defending myself. So I'm going to teach you how I was taught when I was a child. So what you're going to do is figure out which one of your two hands is your dominant punching hand. And you're going to use the other one. So whichever one is not your, we're going to come to the punching hand in a second. So whichever one is not your punching hand, you're going to open it up into it's an open thing, and you're going to put it in front of your face like a football helmet, because your face and brain are your money maker, and you have to protect it. So this is there to absorb any punches that may come in. It works like a spring. The other thing you have to worry about is the fleshy necky bits, because much like you've learned with me, a throat punch will drop a child. So you have to make sure you protect the throat area. So your punching arm is going to go across your neck to protect you. So it goes across this way, so they have no easy access to the neck. Then to make sure you secure this, your defensive hand goes around your elbow to protect your face, thus leaving your punching arm free for the attack. So that way, when the bully comes at you, they go, hey, and they push you down, you get back up and you go, oh, it's on? Okay, you and me. And then you just come at them, and you are protecting your face while having one hand free for swinging. The moment that your bully hits the ground laughing, it buys you time to run. And you're like, what is wrong with? And you're like, ah! And you just run. And they're like, did you just? And you're like, by then, you're like 15 feet down the hallway, and you just keep going. You are welcome if this saves your life at some point. So for this one, it is Ares, god of war. So for some reason, this is the thing that kids remember when they leave my class. The number of kids in high school and college who come back to my room, they're like, you know what I remember about your class? I'm like, my teaching? No, this. And they're like, come at me like, and I'm like, serious? They're like, yeah. Wasn't that from Greek mythology? I'm like, yeah, that's watching a grown man cry. But pretty much that's the thing that'll be connected for you. So, we are now halfway through because we have filled in 7 thrones. These 6, and nicely done, Hestia, don't forget. So let's practice these together real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch me first. I'll do them, and I'll have you guys do them with me. We're going to sort of act through our little dance together. So here's how it should look. You have Zeus, king of all gods, Hera, queen of all gods, Poseidon, god of the oceans. Hiccup, hang on. Sorry, burp, god of bad things in your throat. Sorry, let's start again. Zeus, king of all gods, Hera, queen of all gods, Poseidon, god of the oceans, Demeter, god of grains and harvest, Hephaestus, god of metalworking, and then you have Ares, god of wishing war. Now realize our hand signs a lot of times will go from one to the next. From here, hand stays there, to here, and then you come down to the swimming. From the swimming, you go straight into the pulling. From here, you go straight into the hammering. From the hammering, it slides. It's almost like a dance. They just combine from one to the next. It's okay to be amazed. It's great stuff. All right. So now, yes, Graham, you may. You're going to miss out on all of our fun. So ready? So I'm going to do the hand things. You're going to say the god's name, what they are the god of, and then do the action. And yes, if you are creepy, I'm fine with that as well. You need to say the god's name first, then you can do your creepy version. All right, so we have mildly disturbing, but we got there. By the way, home children, don't think you're getting out of this. When you show up next week, you're doing it also. And then those of you who are all virtual, but on the basketball team, I can track you down also, just so that you're aware. Sometimes it helps to cry. It lets the sad out. So now at this point, we have filled in the thrones with the children that he likes from his wife. So we've decided we still have other thrones to fill in, but here's where he starts filling them in with friendly children.
Uh-oh.
So our first two friendly children are a pair of twins called Artemis and Apollo. And oh, do we have a story that goes along with them. So Artemis and Apollo are going to be our next two. Just so you have visuals, back over here next to where Owen is, this is Artemis and Apollo. Artemis on this side, Apollo over here. Back in this area behind where Lathe is, this is Artemis on this side, Apollo over here. And over here in the big poster, Artemis over here, Apollo on that side. That's Artemis and Apollo. So on this one, this is going to start with a Titan girl by the name of Leto, L-E-T-O. Now, at this point, Zeus has already been friendly a couple times, and Hera has found out and come back to torture people. So, hang on a second, what is? On this one, most Titan girls will no longer be friendly with Zeus. When he shows up and he's like, hey, I'm Zeus, they throw a hand in his face like, no, I'm not going to have you torture me. So because of that, he's having a lot harder time finding girls to be friendly with. So when he shows up one day and he sees this girl named Leto and he tries to mac on her, she throws a hand in his face. He's like, no. He's like, come on, I'm Zeus. He's like, exactly. I'm not an idiot. You get to step it. And she kicks him to the curb. Well, Zeus, being Zeus, goes, okay, I respect that decision. And he leaves her alone and never bothers her again. Just kidding. Instead, he goes and hides in a bush and creepily watches her, because apparently that's a thing guys do. And he goes into a bush and watches her for the whole rest of the day. And he sees that while she's out there, she starts playing. Been there. And sees her as she's out there. Me too, boys. And as she's out there, starts playing with all of these swans that show up on the pond. And she's out there throwing like grain to the swans, and like they go out there fishing. Every once in a while, she like jumps on the back of the swan. And Zeus realizes this is his way to try and get involved. You don't have to wait for the end of the story. We'll get you in a moment. And so he then decides the best way to try and get on her good side is to take the form of a swan. So he does his little magic Zeus powers. He goes into a gigantic swan form and then begins to swim around the other swans, knocking them out of the way. He's like, swan, swan. And the swans leave until it's just him and her. And he goes up next to her and he's like, swan. And she's like, whoa, you're an aggressive swan. But she ends up hanging out with him for the whole rest of the day. She like surfs on his back a little bit, like throws fish to him, have this bonding thing, you know, things you do with swans, until the day ends and she starts talking to the swan. She's like, you know what, swan? I think I might have fallen in love with you. You are the nicest. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. It's perfectly normal to fall in love with a swan on the first day. And she says, swan, you know what? If you were a person, I think I would get married to you because you're that great of a swan. And the swan goes, and goes, takes his little swan wings and goes, flappy, flappy, boom, and turns back into Zeus. Leto goes, what? Swan? You were Zeus the whole time? Oh my God. I mean, oh my Zeus. Well, I guess we should be friendly. And she's friendly with him. Zeus then leaves her behind because it's Zeus. He's like, oh, thanks for being friendly. By the way, my wife may try to kill you. And then just leaves. Like, what? No. Well, needless to say, not too much longer, Hera shows up. And she's like, hey, girlfriend, rumor is you done been with my man. And Leto's like, yes, but it's not my fault. He was a swan. And Hera's like, no, that makes it weird. She's like, it's still your fault. And so she starts yelling at Leto. You can't go and be with another girl's man. Not a thing you're supposed to do. And she's like, well, listen, it's already happened. I apologize. There's not much we can do about it now. Hera goes, oh, yeah, there is something we can do about it. We're going to make a lesson out of this so no other girl is ever with my man. Leto goes, what are you going to do? She goes, all right. So my man is the god of land. She goes, yeah. She goes, as long as your feet are touching my man's kingdom, you can't stop running. He goes, what do you mean I can't stop running? I'm literally standing here. She goes, yeah, and in a moment you're going to start running and you're never going to stop until forever. Leto goes, you can't make me start running. Hera goes, you're right. I can't. He can. And out of the ground comes this gigantic creature called an anaconda. It was the size of the Empire State Building. Boom! Lands right in front of her. Leto's like, oh, snap. She's like, that's not good. Hera goes, anaconda, eat her. She's like, ah! And she just takes off running. And the anaconda's like, no, 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 and starts chasing after her. Leto runs. Being a Titan, she doesn't have to stop for things like food or sleep. And she runs for days and weeks. And you would think she'd start to lose weight, but she doesn't. Her tummy starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it turns out she's pregnant with Zeus's children. But being the fact that she's being chased, she does not have time to stop and give birth. So she runs for months, and then she runs for years, and then she runs for decades. Her belly just gets bigger and bigger, and she's like, and she's running, and she starts running by Mount Olympus, and every time she goes by, she's like, I hate you, Zeus, you're responsible for all of this. And one day he comes out and he's watching all of this happen, and he's like, I feel kind of responsible for this, while he's eating his popcorn, watching her go running by. And she's like, you idiot, you are responsible. So he eventually, after decades of her being chased, decides that he's finally going to do something to help her out. So he sends a message down. He goes, all right, here's how we're going to solve it. Since the curse says that you have to run as long as you are touching my kingdom, we just have to have you not touching my kingdom. So here's his plan. He says, you're going to run to this beach, and when you get to this beach, jump off a cliff, land on an island. Problem is, the island is still connected to the ground, making it part of Zeus's kingdom. But everyone knows islands were connected to the ground via a string, and that's all you have to do. So he goes, I'm going to have my brother come up, cut the string, separating the connection. Thus, this is no longer considered part of my kingdom, and you will be free. And she's like, you're an idiot, but I accept. It's better than continuing to run. So, by the way, I was trying to find some good clip art for this. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a clip art of pregnant women running. But I was pretty happy. I found a picture of a pregnant woman running. So I was really stoked on this one. And then, by the way, it's also hard to find a picture of a snake running. But again, I was pretty happy on that one. I was able to find a picture of a snake running. So I was like, as far as my BroviCast goes, that's pretty on point. And so the idea is she's going to run to this little cliff, dive off of it, land on the island. Snake is right behind her, nipping at her heels. Before the snake can jump off the cliff onto the island, his other brother breaks the cord. That brother being Poseidon comes up, does a little dance, booga, 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 breaking that little cord, and it disappears. As soon as that cord is broken, it breaks the curse. This is no longer part of Zeus's kingdom, and she's free. The snake stops on the cliff, confused, not knowing where to go. As soon as she stops running, she's like, thank God, plump, plump, and out pop 2 children. She gives birth to 2 full-grown adults that have been inside her this entire time. Very, very angry adults who have spent the last several decades growing up inside of their mother. So one of the first things these adult children do is decide to kill the snake. But the snake is way over there. So they immediately go over to this forest that's nearby, rip off tree branches, and build bow and arrows to shoot the snake. I know. Your thought is, where are they going to get the strings from? Duh. They use their umbilical cords. They were just born. So as soon as they're born, they just go pop, pop, and then you string it on there, and you go, by the way, that's not even a thing me making up. That's straight out of the story. And they just turned around and just went poppity, snappity, shootity, and they turn around and start shooting the snake and kill it. As soon as they kill the snake, they are free and everything is good and the snake dies. Hera actually feels bad at this point. She still does not like Leto because the girlfriend was with her man, but she feels bad for Apollo and Artemis. She goes, you had to grow up inside of your parent. I know what that's like. I will take pity on you. Why does Hera know what that's like? Nicely done, because her father ate her and she grew up inside of him. Hi, Sophie. And so because of that, Hera agrees to let the two of them become Olympians, and Artemis and Apollo get thrones. Did you need something, Sophie? I do, but I'm not giving out any gum. You already came by. Don't you dance at me. You already came by and got water.
I will bring you snacks tomorrow. I can promise.
No, you don't have to ear pinky promise. You're going to pinky promise. If not, you are forbidden from my room.
Okay.
Okay. You just pinky promised me. Class is a low point? No, I accept that. Bring me snacks.
That's a lot of gum.
You're bringing me a lot of snacks.
I said I'll bring you some.
Uh-huh.
You just you want some snacks?
So Artemis and Apollo become the next two gods on Mount Olympus. See? I told you. That's what people remember from my class. Oh, I'm gonna go home and cry. So with them, they were thought to be Ellie. Yes. So they were twin gods, which is why the things they represent were connected to each other also, which you can tell by looking at their posters, Artemis poster, Apollo poster, same two posters here. What is it they represent that was going to connect to them being twins? Sun and the moon. Artemis was the god of the moon. Apollo was the god of the sun. And so with Artemis, she's connected to a couple things. One, she was the god of the moon, but there wasn't a whole lot that was involved in being god of the moon. So the main thing she becomes the god of is the god of hunting, because the whole shooting that snake thing right away. So she becomes known as the god of hunting. Anytime you went hunting in the woods, you would pray to Artemis. She's also the god of single ladies, because after what happened to her mom, she declared that she would never date a man because she knows what happens. She's also the god of Beyonce, because Beyonce would pray to her because single ladies, same thing. And so she was the god of single ladies, the god of the moon, and the god of hunting. The ones that we're going to focus on is she was the god of the moon and hunting. For our hand sign that goes along with it.
What do they call? Wait, is it like Moon Daddy?
Unfortunately, it was Moon Daddy. You know, I was like, we're focusing on the hunting, but apparently Moon Daddy has a better sound to it. You know, first period kids. So for this one, because to honor the using of her umbilical cord for the hunting, and that's just hard to pass up, we're going to channel our inner hunting of a baby, and you're going to pull back the bow of a string. This is where we're going to find out that many of you should never go hunting. Mr. Broviak, I'm using a bow and arrow. Yes, you are, boo. It's okay. Hold it, pull back. There you go. Or this thing, which I've had, just shooting it sideways.
You hold it with one finger above, third finger below, and you pull back.
You are correct. I actually own a bow. I am an archer.
Me too.
Apollo, our other god, does get connected to the bow and arrow, but it's not a main thing that he does. His big thing is he is the sun god. Literally, he drove the sun across the sky. He got into this chariot, horses with wheels. It would drive it from one mountain to another. And some stories say it was his hat. Some stories say it was the horses. Some say it was the wheel. Whatever. The sun was him going across the sky. So one of the biggest things he gets connected to is being the god of the sun. His other main area was being the god of hot guys, which may not sound like a thing, but apparently it was pretty important because he was known as the hottest of all the dudes that were out there, the hottest male god. Chicks loved Apollo. He was a chick magnet. Because of that, he also became the god of anything that chicks liked. So as soon as he found out, he was like, you know what girls like? Music. He's like, I'm the god of music. Like, well, chicks also like poetry. I'm the god of poetry. Like, well, they also like singing. I'm the god of singing. Like, well, I'm the god of dancing. And so anything that girls would like, he became the god of. And so he became like this god of Mac Daddies. So Apollo, the god of the sun and hotties. Hang on. Wait one more moment till we get to our hand sign, and then we'll get to your creepiness. So on this one, our hand sign to go along with Apollo, god of sun and hotties, is whenever you go outside and it's really hot, or whenever you see that really hot guy, you're going to have pretty much the same reaction to both of them, which is going to be the feigning of yourself. You're going to go Apollo, god of the sun and hotties. Zach.
How can light before Apollo?
Squirrel. Ways. Yeah, they have the.
How tall are the Titans?
This tall.
Well, I was just wondering because the other ones were really big, and if Zeus was really big, how did he hide in a bush?
There's a really big bush. He came down. Squirrel. Blaze.
So wait a minute. So if Apollo if Apollo used horses for
the sun.
For the sun, yeah.
Yes.
And the sun is really hot.
Yes, they were not normal horses. They were magic horses.
But didn't Poseidon create horses?
He did.
And since the sun is hot.
Yes.
And water is not hot.
Magic horses.
So.
Still magic horses. So right, and one of them was a My Little Pony, and I've seen them run across the sky all the time because some of those are Brovies.
Mr. First period.
What is the creepiest thing you can think of saying for this?
Daddy.
Yeah, no, it was Hot Daddy. They were all excited, yelling, "Hot Daddy!" And I'm like, oh, yeah, that was my reaction too. Although it was a little bit higher. It wasn't this. It was, oh my God. But yes, that's. So at this point, we now have Apollo and Artemis added to our list. So here we now get to go to our next god. We have to go back in time to get this god. It's going to be Aphrodite. To add Aphrodite to the list, we get to go back in time to an event we've already covered. Aphrodite, by the way, the one over here that's above Owen, who's the girl in pink.
The prettiest girl.
She is the prettiest girl. And she's also back up there. So this goes all the way back to this event at the beginning of Greek mythology. Remember with the overthrow of Uranus, who is it that overthrows him? Cronus. What weapon did he use? The scythe. Every time that he jumped up to attack Uranus, what happened? He did the pokey pokey, and chunks would fall out of Uranus down to Earth. And I mentioned that when that happened, some of those chunks would form creatures. That impacts our story today. One of those chunks, when it got cut out of Uranus, fell down, and when it hit the water, it formed a god by the name of Aphrodite. Aphrodite is one of the oldest Titans. She's older than Zeus, older than all of his siblings. She goes all the way back to the overthrow of Uranus. But she was floating in the ocean this whole time, not being paid attention to. The whole war happened, she's out there floating. Zeus takes over, she's out there floating. We're adding in gods, she's out there floating. Poseidon takes over, she's out there floating. As soon as she's floating out there in the water, eventually her little, for some reason, it always says that she's floating in a seashell. I have no idea where she gets a seashell in the middle of the ocean, but it's why, like in this one above Cassiopeia, she's standing in the middle of the seashell. It's why when I Googled Aphrodite pictures, most of them pop up with her in a seashell. It's the same thing. She's out there floating in the seashell. No one pays attention to her until she hits land. As soon as she hits land and her foot touches earth, a god instantly knows that she exists. That god would be Zeus himself. Because she is a hot person, he is instantly aware of her existence. He's up on Mount Olympus when this happens. She's like stepping off onto the beach. He's in the middle of a conversation. He's like, hey, so we're going to have to figure out. there's a hot girl somewhere. He just takes off running. She's like, oh, runs down to the beach like, shows up. He's like, hey, how you doing? She's like, you're kind of creepy. He's like, don't worry, it gets worse. And so he just stares at her and drools, realizes she is the hottest girl he has ever confronted in his entire life. He's like, hey, I'm Zeus. I'm the king of everything that you can possibly see. It's all mine. That's how big a person I am. She goes, what about the ocean? He's like, not that. Everything else is mine. He's like, you know what? You are the hottest person I have ever seen. And she's like, oh, that's creepy. He's like, thank you. So with that, he makes an executive decision. His executive decision is that he is not going to be friendly with her, which is a really big step for him. But he's just gotten in trouble several times, and he realizes how incredibly attractive she is. And he's like, I'm a big boy now, so I'm not going to be friendly. But before you're too proud of him, he instead goes, you know what? You are incredibly attractive. Here's what I think we should do. Come back to my house with me, and I'm going to put you on a chair so I can just stare at you all the time. And she's like, that's creepy. He's like, don't worry, it'll get worse. And he brings her back to Mount Olympus and gives her one of the thrones. He goes, guess what? I just found her. She's mine, and she's going to get a throne. And the other guy's like, okay. Now, when she gets a throne, chaos ensues. All of the other male gods spend all of their time staring at her and drooling. Work stops on Mount Olympus. No god can do anything because they're just going, hey, and it gets all kinds of creepy. The female gods stop working, not because they're checking her out. They're giving her stabby motions because all the guys are looking at her. They're like, I'm going to kill her and stab her right in the back. I'm going to break her neck. And so Zeus realizes this is not good because all the females want to kill her and all the dudes want to marry her. He was like, I may have made a poor choice. But he comes up with a solution. Sorry, itchy nose. My solution is the reason why everyone's trying to do this is because she's not married. If she got married, that would solve the problem. So he comes up with a solution of let's have her get married. So he goes and talks to Aphrodite. He goes, Aphrodite, I've got good news. I think it's time you get married. And she's like, yay, I can't wait to meet the man of my dreams. He goes, you're in luck. I've already chosen. She's like, what? He's like, I already know who you're going to marry. She goes, oh, wait, is it you? He's like, what? Me? No, I'm already married. That'd be wrong. Talk to me later. She's like, oh, well, it's not you. Oh, is it that squishy guy over there juggling fish? He's like, nah, he already had his chance with you. She's like, oh, is it that really attractive looking guy over there who's like struggling? He's like, no, not him. She's like, oh, no. Oh, is it that other really good looking guy that did he just stub his toe and start crying? He's like, nope, not that one either. She's like, wait, is it the guy over there dressed all in black hiding in the corner? There's nope, not that one either. She's like, there's no one left for me to marry except for that ugly crippled thing sitting in the corner. And Zeus is like, yeah, buddy, that's who you're gonna marry. And so he informs Aphrodite that she gets to marry Hephaestus. Hephaestus is excited. He's like, what now? And Zeus goes, hey, remember when I crippled you for life? And Hephaestus is like, yeah. And he's like, I figured the best way for me to apologize was to let you marry the hottest girl to ever exist. And Hephaestus is like, thanks, Dad. He's excited. Aphrodite, not excited. She's like, I don't want to marry that. And Zeus goes, that's adorable. If you think you have a choice. And so he forces her to get married. So Aphrodite decides to get her revenge. She goes, all right, if I have to get married, I'm going to channel my inner Zeus. So what is she going to do as soon as she gets married? She's going to make herself a friend. So she goes out and gets herself a boyfriend. Now, the boyfriend she chooses is the one that she thinks will annoy her husband the most. That being
Aries.
his brother, Ares. The one that everybody hates is who she chooses as her boyfriend. And she's like, that's who I love because he's a man and he's hunky. And Ares is like, just don't hug me too hard, I'll cry. And so it becomes this perfect relationship. And she does not hide it at all. She flaunts it in Hephaestus's face every moment that she can, which is why up there above where Cassiope is, I put their 3 posters next to each other, where you have Aphrodite in the middle, and then the one that she's married is the closest one, and then Ares is the one that's her side piece over here. So you have married and side piece. Over here, this poster, they did the same thing. This is Hephaestus, married to Aphrodite. Aphrodite's not paying any attention to him. She's over here going, "You're a hunky man," and she's looking that direction at Ares. So then it was well known throughout all of Greek mythology that she was openly dating Hephaestus' brother. So with that one, Aphrodite, because she was the most beautiful person ever, and because the gods love irony, they made her the god of love and beauty. Even though she never falls in love, she's a horrible person all around. It was thought that she could make other people fall in love, and the fact that she was the god of being really, really attractive.
Well, okay,
What do you think? Try to think of the creepiest thing possible for kids to be yelling loudly in my room, and that's pretty much what they went with every single time. Well, it's fun. Connected to Aphrodite, of all the options you could choose, yelling "Love Daddy" is probably that thing that I don't want being yelled outside my room. So, yeah, again, one of us is strange. But back to here, our hand sign, not one of us, but one of us. The hand signs that are going to go along with it is much like with Hera, where we did the circle. You're going to take your circle, but you're going to break the top of it and then push the bottom down, and it makes a little heart, and it's adorable. Now, I've realized that some of you are really good at your gang signs, which I was not aware of, because you're able to throw like these weird, like these, I don't know, it's like a weird hearty gang signy thing. And so I've had kids who can do like some kind of weird, like double heart thing, and some kids who can throw like a heart in this direction. And I don't know, one kid that did thing like a flying bird. So whatever your particular thing is, it's creating a heart with your, and then I had the one kid was like, They're just like, and they like did like a weird squeezy hand thing. Is this like a human idol? Kids are strange. And so when I'm going for this one, but if you look like you're strangling a mouse and you're like, Aphrodite, god of love and beauty, or there you go, whatever your hand sign may be. Our next god, when this one comes in, I've already given you this god's backstory. There you go. Athena goes back to Zeus swallowing Metis during that whole picnic thing, and then Metis giving birth inside of Zeus, and then Athena being born. Where was Athena born from? Born from Zeus's brain, which makes her the god of, there you go, makes her the god of wisdom. Now, since I already gave you that story, I don't have to go back and give you that story again. The hand sign, we're going to point to both what she's the god of and where she was born from. It takes you to an elbow.
Did first period take Smart Daddy?
They did. Actually, Wise Daddy, but Smart Daddy would make sense also. But yes, same thing. Max?
So I get Athena is like the god of wisdom. Why is she like in full body armor and like?
She was also a god of war, because when she made the armor while she was in Zeus's brain, she's considered strategic war. Ares is war that you just want to win. She was the god of war using your brain. So she was also the other god of war. Yes.
Isn't it weird that the last 5 people have the name with the A?
They did. They had a lot of A's throughout the entire thing. There's a lot of Greek mythology that's strange, but yes, I agree. Then, for our next god, wait. How many thrones do we have to fill in at this point?
1.
Just 1. Because who still has a throne?
Hestia.
Hestia still has a throne. So our last god to get a throne is a guy by the name of Hermes. And you betcha, we have a story to go along with it. And brand new Brovi art that I just made today.
Yay.
So here's how our story begins. With this story, it's going to start off with Zeus going through the woods one day. And with Zeus going through the woods, he has now begun to learn his lesson about being friendly with Titans. It keeps coming back to haunt him. So this time, he decides to no longer be as friendly with Titans, and he goes a different direction. and he finds what's called a wood nymph, which in Greek mythology was sort of considered like an elf. And so he finds this nymph in the woods one day by the name of Maya, M-A-I-A. And he thinks this nymph is a hottie. And he figures, you know what? An elf is not the same thing as a titan, so it should be completely legal. So he thinks it's fine. So he falls in love with this young Maya, this nymph, and she has no idea that it's a bad idea to be friendly with Zeus. So her and Zeus are friendly together. He then tells her afterwards, hey, just so you're aware, my wife may try and kill you, even if you're a nymph. So you may want to go hide for a little bit so she doesn't come back to kill you. She's like, what now? And he's like, good luck. And he takes her up to a cave and leaves her there and goes, hey, just stay in this cave until, I don't know, till you're not dead. And takes off and leaves her sitting in this cave. Turns out, when you mix Titan DNA with nymph DNA, things get a little weird and wacky because apparently things get accelerated. So even though they were friendly in the morning time, she gets pregnant that day and gives birth that afternoon, all in a single day. She gives birth to a little baby that she calls Hermes. By the way, I was super excited when I was Googling pictures and I typed in baby Hermes and there was actually a picture of a baby Hermes. I was like, that is an absolute win. I was stoked. So baby Hermes is born and this baby is super hyperactive. As soon as it pops out, it's like running back and forth and she has to like take her the umbilical cord, like turn it into a leash. She's like, oh my God, what's going on? And she's trying to slow down this baby as best she can, and it wears her out because it's been a big day. You know, you met Zeus, you got friendly, you gave birth, you have a baby on a leash. She's like, you know what I need to do? Take a nap. So she decides to lay down and take a nap. She tucks little baby Hermes into like his little bed area. She's like, baby Hermes, you need to chillax. I'm going to take a little nap. And she lays down to fall asleep. Unfortunately, little baby Hermes is not good at sitting still. So as soon as she's asleep, he just takes off and leaves the cave. And he's like, it's exploring time. It goes out wandering the nearby woods. In the nearby woods, he's going by finding random animals like a raccoon and a possum and squirrels and chipmunks. And then as he's going through, he sees this weird glow coming from between the trees. And he's like, ooh, that's exciting. And as he goes through the trees and finding this weird glowy area, he finds a whole herd of giant golden glowing cows. And he's like, glowing moo-moos? This is the greatest find ever. And he does what any small child would do when you find a whole herd of glowing cows in the middle of the forest. He steals them. And he grabs all of the cows, picks up a stick, and starts hitting them in their little cow bottoms. Smackety, 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 smackety. And he steals all of the cows and takes them back with him all the way back up to the cave. When we get to the cave, he's all excited, these little moo-moos. Now he knows his mom is still sound asleep in there. So he tells the moo-moos, you can't make any noise. They're like, whoa. He's like, quiet, like, and he takes all the cows and leads them to the back of the cave area. And once they're way back hidden in the cave where his mom can't see them, he comes in behind them, covers up all the footprints as best he can. He's like, hey, that went pretty well. He realizes anytime in Greek mythology that you had a great big gift given to you, especially if it was animals or food, you had to sacrifice part of it to the gods. So he realizes he has to sacrifice one of these cows to the gods. So he goes back and grabs one of the golden moo-moos, brings it to the front of the cave, and he goes, I sacrificed. Wait a minute. He reaches down, pulls out his knife that every child has. Like babies don't have knives in your household. And he pulls out his little knife and he begins to sacrifice the cow. He's like, oh, mighty gods, accept my golden moo-moo. Moo, 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 moo. And he kills the cow and sacrifices it, leaving a giant pile of cow guts just laying there. Turns out that was exhausting. He's finally worn out, and Hermes like, I've had a big day. So he lays down and takes a nap and falls asleep. I wasn't sure how to make him lay down. So you got to roll with my BroviCast sometimes. I get creative on that one. So I felt like I nailed it. So that night, that night Apollo shows up. Turns out the golden cows were his. The reason they glowed in the dark was because they absorbed his glowiness, and he would go and hang out with them, and now they would absorb his glowiness or like take the radiation off of him. They were his favorite thing in the world. He shows up, there's no golden cows. And he's like, what happened to my big pile of golden moo-moos? He's looking around on the ground and he sees this little trail of golden moo-moo prints leading away from this area. And he's like, where'd my golden moo-moos go? So he follows the trail of golden moo-moo prints until he finds this cave. And in this cave, there's this lady sleeping, a completely massacred cow, and a young child sleeping there who looks like he's an early teenager. Apollo comes in and he sees all this and he immediately assumes whoever this woman is killed one of his cows. And so he goes over and kicks her awake. He's like, hey, woman, why'd you kill my cows? Maya wakes up. He's like, oh my God, there's a dead cow. Oh my Zeus, there's a dead cow laying there. And they start yelling back and forth. He was like, how dare you kill my cow? She's like, how dare you kill a cow in front of my child? And they're yelling back and forth. Eventually wakes up Hermes. And he's fascinated. He's like, ooh, this is exciting. Watching these people yell back and forth. But being Hermes, he eventually gets bored with all of this and starts wandering around the little cave area. And as he's wandering around the little cave area, he finds an old turtle shell that's been abandoned in there. Hang on 1 second. Bring this kid in. The turtle shell has no turtle inside of it. It's an empty shell. And he starts bopping around the top of it. Bappy, 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 bappy. You know, as you do when you have a bad case of the ADHD and you can't focus and you're having a god yell at your mom and you just start smacking a turtle shell. Apollo gets annoyed. He's like, listen, kid, I'm busy yelling at your mom right now. You need to settle down. So Hermes goes, okay. Pulls out his knife and starts stabbing the turtle shell right around this little top area. Donkey, 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 donkey. After he stabbed the top of the turtle shell, he then goes over to the dead cow area and starts playing in the cow guts, as children tend to do, until he finds one of the intestines, pulls out one of the cow intestines, and then starts stringing it through the turtle shell across those holes, going back and forth and back and forth, pulls it really tight, ties it off, and then begins to pluck at the little intestine strings. Boing, 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 doing, 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 and starts making this musical instrument called a lyre, L-Y-R-E. And he starts playing this musical instrument right there. It distracts Apollo in the middle of him yelling at Maya. And he's like, you can't just go killing another man's cat. Kid, what are you doing? And he's like, bang, 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 bang. Just, they're playing him. And Apollo recognizes immediately that this thing would be great for getting chicks. He was like, that's a musical instrument. Women would love that thing. So he goes, hey, kid, how about you give that thing to me? Hermes goes, no, I'm keeping it. It's mine. And Apollo goes, how about we trade you for it? How about this piece of like shiny string? And Hermes goes, no, I'm not an idiot. And he goes, how about you give me your giant herd of golden cows? And Apollo goes, kid, have you not been paying attention? I lost my golden cows. I'm trying to find them. If I had my golden cows, I could trade you. So Hermes goes, okay, how about if I find your golden cows, I get to keep them? I was like, yeah, all right, kid. If you find my golden cows, then sure, you can keep them if you give me that musical instrument so I can go mac on the ladies. Hermes goes, shake on it. He goes, okay, we'll shake on it. And he goes over and shakes the hand, and he hands over his little musical instrument to Apollo. Apollo is not immediately enthralled. He's like, this thing is awesome. And he can play it right across there. He's like, kid, you're an idiot. No one's ever going to find. And Hermes goes, moo-moos! And out come all of these moo-moos from the back. And Apollo's like, what? He's like, what are you gonna do? Apollo is irate and goes back up to Mount Olympus and complains to Zeus. He's like, Zeus, you'll never believe what happened. He's like, what's going on? He was like, well, my cows got stolen, and I found out who stole my cows, and I ended up losing my cows, and I got this musical instrument, which is great for macking on the ladies. And Zeus goes, wow, that's awful. He's like, you got tricked out of your magical cows, and all you got was a turtle shell? What kind of genius tricked you out of that? Paul's like, it was a small child. Zeus goes, what now? You got tricked by a small child. He's like, it was a really crafty small child. And Zeus is like, well, I have to go meet this child. So he finds out where the cave is, and Zeus goes down there. When he shows up and walks in, he's like, hey, I'm looking for a real Maya. She's like, Zeusy Boo. He's like, wasn't I just, wait, who's that? And there's a young man in his 20s in the cave. And Zeus is like, I was looking for a child. Who's this guy? And Maya's like, that's our son. He was like, girlfriend, we were just together yesterday. And she's like, surprise! Zeus is so impressed with Hermes' speed and the fact that he was sneaky and tricky. And he's like, anyone that is this crafty and devious needs to be on my side. You get to come hang out with me. So he brings Hermes up to Mount Olympus and gives him the final throne on Mount Olympus. He just tells Hera, I just found this kid. He's amazing. I have no idea who his father is. And he brings Hermes in. And because Hermes has nonstop energy and can't sit still, he gives Hermes a special job. That special job being, he becomes the messenger of the gods. Or as first period would say, close. They called him Mail Daddy, which made it weird. And so with Hermes, pretty much every time we see Hermes in all of these things, he's doing the exact same thing. There you go. Pretty much every single time he was sitting there running because he could not sit still. So you have Hermes, messenger god, and you're going to do the running in place thing from there. Now, we still have one more god to get to, but this final god does not come in for another 1,000 years. It's not until humans are created that this next god comes in. So we're going to save him for next week. I'll tell you his name, though, is going to be Dionysus. Dionysus, he is the one that's up there, and he has a really good story that goes along with him, but we have to get humans first because he gets connected to them. Your Friday e-learning is going to be a 15-question quiz. I'm going to tell you right now, I just gave you all the answers. I'm kidding. Literally, the answer's right in front of you. There's 12 of your 15 answers on this quiz. You were just writing down those names. Here are the other 3 answers if you want them. One is a god that was a brother of Zeus and gave up his throne. Is correct. One was a sister of Zeus and the nicest god to ever exist. Hestia. One was the only god known to be swallowed 4 Olympians. Nicely done. Cronus. Those are your 12 questions. So what's going to happen for your quiz is I'm going to see how well you paid attention to all of these origin stories. It'll say, this god was born when Zeus had a headache. Athena. Nicely done. This god was a jerk and stole his brother's wife. Aries. So that's the kind of questions I'm asking you. So as long as you can answer all of those, then you should be good to go. So that is going to be your E-Friday learning thing coming up. Next week, we get to our story of Dionysus, which is going to be memorable. And we get to invent humans again, which is going to be even more memorable. And I believe we might even get a chance to take a tour of the underworld and kill some of you. Home children, I'm done with you until next week. Enjoy yourself. We'll see you later.
Wait,
thanks for tuning in. So Leah,
are these going to be multiple choice questions or do you have to type it in?
you're going to have to type it in, but I'm giving you all 15 answers right there. So on the quiz, I'll list all 15 names for you to look at.
Okay.
And actually, the best is to copy and paste to make it even easier so you don't mess up spelling.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Yes, child.